Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy News Analysis Discussion class. Okay, so before we proceed into the discussion, let's just look at the yesterday given prelims practice question. The question is the Parliament Prevention of Disqualification Act 1959 exempts several posts from disqualification on the grounds of office of profit. B. The above mentioned act was amended 5 times. C. The term office of profit is well defined in the constitution. See, the term office of profit is not defined in the constitution. So therefore, this option C is incorrect. So if we eliminate option 3, we left with only option A, option 1 and 2. So therefore, the correct answer for this question is option A. So let's look into the provisions regarding the disqualification of a member. According to Article 10102(1) and 191(1) of the Constitution, legislators, both MP and MLA, they can be debarred from holding office of profit, right? So under the central government or any other state government. So it can put them under a position of financial benefit. So they will be disqualified from being a member of either uh, the parliament or the state legislative assembly, either house of the parliament. The Supreme Court held that the Parliament Prevention of Disqualification Amendment Act 2006 is exempted 55 offices occupied by the members of parliament from disqualification. So therefore, the it was constitutionally valid. The Parliament Prevention of Disqualification Amendment Act 2006 is constitutionally valid because it exempted 55 offices occupied by the members of parliament, right? So the next question for today's practice question is: consider the following statements regarding the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Right? See, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana is an important and a flagship health insurance scheme launched by the government of India. So, for the exam point of view, this question is very important. So the first option is Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana is the world's largest health insurance assurance scheme, fully financed by the government. Option B, it provides a cover of 15 lakh per family per year for secondary and tertiary care hospitalization across public and private empaneled hospitals in India. And option C, it covers up to 10 days of pre-hospitalization, 15 days of post-hospitalization expenses such as diagnostics and medicine. So please refer Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana and also try to attempt this prelims practice question because this will help you in your exam, right? So these are the prelims practice questions of yesterday and today. So let's get into the discussion. Some of the important news articles given in today's newspaper include India must board online dispute resolution bus. So this is part of overall arbitration architecture in India. India should focus especially on online dispute resolution for the arbitration, right? So that will improve ease of doing business in India. The second news article is health systems must gear up to face the fresh rise in COVID-19 cases. And the third news article is the role of parliamentary committees in scrutinizing various bills which are introduced in either house of the parliament. Right, the third news article, this article is important for prelims examination. So a beginner's guide to the Large Hadron Collider, its functions and its future. And we'll also discuss Hope India 23 exercise between India and USA. And the last news article is consumer price inflation slides below 6% mark in first time this year. So these are all the important news articles, right? So let's discuss the first news article, that is India must board the online dispute resolution bus. So see, this article is regarding India's overall arbitration framework, arbitration, uh, uh, architecture. How India earlier missed the opportunity to be a global, arb- an international arbitration hub. India has the potential to become an international arbitration hub. However, this opportunity was missed by India. Now, Singapore become the international arbitration hub. So, even though we have missed the international arbitration hub, we have a great potential to develop online dispute resolution or online dispute redressal for arbitration in India. So that, and in fact, there is a need for institutional arbitration that enhances or increases the ease of doing business in India. However, India have shown a tremendous improvement in ease of doing business. We know that ease of doing business ranks countries as per it is released by the World Bank, and it ranks countries as per the country's uh, openness to welcome businesses investment. So therefore, it is prepared by the World Bank. The ease of doing business ranking of India significantly improved in recent times. So India's rank was 142 in 2014 out of 190 countries, and the improvement of India's ease of doing business is indicating here. India reached the 63rd position in 2019. So, however, India significantly lagged in one particular area, that is enforcing contracts. In the category of enforcing contracts, India is still lagged behind, and India ranked poorly, 163rd in enforcing contracts. However, uh, this ranking, 163rd ranking, is a marginal improvement considering 186th rank in 2015 and 173rd in 2006. So therefore, India's focus should be on enforcing contracts. So enforcing contracts would be possible when we have a comprehensive institutional arbitration mechanism, right? So therefore, India should focus on setting up the arbitration infrastructure. India should focus on online arbitration systems so that it will improve ease of doing business ranking for India, and it will also help in enforcing contracts in a more efficient and effective manner. However, we all know that India opened its economy in the 1990s, right? So that was 1990 was the decade where the growth of international arbitration, there was an enormous growth of international arbitration. More and more countries are entered into bilateral investment treaties, and also institutional arbitration have become a preferred choice of resolution. For example, there's a country, and within the country, between the state or the business or an investment firm, there may be a dispute, right? So it is important to resolve the dispute in a speedier and amicable manner. So therefore, the arbitration facilitates the resolution of such disputes, whether between two business groups or between one business group and the government. So therefore, uh, an increase in the bilateral treaties, investment treaties between different countries, also led to the growth of international arbitration, right? When investments are uh, increase, uh, when investments are increasing at a rapid pace, that also increases the scope for arbitration, right? However, uh, India introduced its first piece of legislation on arbitration and conciliation by the middle of a decade. So by the middle of 1990s, India introduced a piece of legislation for arbitration and conciliation. You know, India has been receiving investments, so therefore, when India has been receiving investment, it is also important for India to have a legislation on arbitration and conciliation, so that if there are any future disputes, the disputes will be resolved in a more amicable manner. And also in a conducive manner. So India introduced a piece of legislation on arbitration and conciliation in the middle of the decade. And in fact, India earned a reputation of arbitration unfriendly because there are several reasons for uh, India acquiring the reputation of arbitration unfriendly. And same has been quoted by the Sri Krishna Committee that was appointed in the year 2017. Sri Krishna Committee also reiterated that India is arbitration unfriendly. So therefore, businesses in India are not preferring the Indian arbitration, rather they're going out of India for their arbitration or to settle their disputes. There are few reasons. There are a couple of reasons for that. The one reason is there's a the lack of preference for institutional arbitration over ad hoc arbitration. In India, there's no preference for institutional arbitration. More and more preference is given to the ad hoc, the temporary arbitration, no permanent institutionalized arbitration. So, therefore, this is one reason. And the second reason is interference from the judiciary. There has been a huge interference from the judiciary in the arbitration of these matters. So, therefore, the judicial interference from the appointment of arbiters to the enforcement of awards, setting aside the arbitral awards on the grounds of public policy as well. For example, if an ad hoc body given an arbitral award, the arbitral award is also set aside on public policy grounds. So there has been a huge interference from the Indian judiciary. So right from the appointment of the arbiters and enforcement of awards and setting aside the arbitral awards on the grounds of public policy, right? So, in fact, if an ad hoc body gives an arbitration award, the arbitration award may be set aside on the grounds of public policy. So that leads to uh, a situation where the uh, the business groups have been preferring the global arbitration rather than preferring the Indian arbitration, right? So India have brought a few amendments in the year 2015 and 2019 to the earlier introduced piece of legislation. So, and in fact, India had also uh, make sure that the judicial decisions have put India on the right path because a few recent judicial decisions also. So these judicial decisions says that the scope for using public policy as a ground for settling these awards will be narrowed, right? When an award is issued, an award is uh, proclaimed, then the scope for the public policy, setting aside the award on the grounds of public policy, will be uh, narrowed down so that this will facilitate arbitration in India more efficiently, and business groups will also prefer to opt arbitration within India. However, there is a focus on prioritizing institutional arbitration. In recent past, India have also been focusing on institutionalizing the arbitration, the prioritization of institutional arbitration. In fact, despite all these measures, still India is not a preferred destination for arbitration. So, in fact, Indian businesses also preferring arbitration outside India. So they wanted to make their arbitration outside India, even disputes related to two Indian entities also. However, Singapore, which opened its International Arbitration Center, the Singapore International Arbitration Center. So this center was opened in the years 1990s when India was still in the phase of opening up its economy for the investment. At that time, Singapore opened its International Arbitration Center. So it has emerged as a global arbitration hub, and it is also ranked first in terms of enforcing contracts. Now, Indian companies are also preferring the International Arbitration Center in Singapore. So earlier we have discussed that India has a potential to become a global arbitration hub. However, Singapore rightly utilized the opportunity, and now it has become a global arbitration hub. In fact, several Indian companies are also preferring arbitration in this arbitration center in Singapore. However, there has been an enormous expansion of technology owing to the COVID-19 pandemic in recent past, because India has the advantage of the technology, and with the technology, we should make it a strength, right? We have a technology, and technology should be our strength. And with this technology, India can emerge as a front runner in the online dispute resolution, right? In the online dispute resolution regime, India can emerge as a front runner, because we already know that there has been almost a universal dissemination of online technology, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? When the lockdowns were imposed, there has been an enormous expansion of digital technologies even into the rural areas. So there were also attempts to build the digital divide between the urban and rural areas. So therefore, India should rightly leverage this opportunity, and this will facilitate the online hearings also. So during COVID-19 pandemic also, the judiciary held several online hearings. So when online hearings are common, then that will facilitate access to justice, right? Easy access, affordable access, a quick access to justice. So therefore, online dispute resolution, which is about resolving disputes in virtual environment, not a physical environment, rather virtual environment, it has a several advantages. So the online dispute resolution has several advantages. So what are the advantages? So it can reduce the burden on the courts. It can save time and costs also. It provide effective resolution of disputes, right? When we have online dispute resolution, it improves access to justice, and it will reduce the burden on the courts. For example, you set up a separate arbitration, online dispute resolution courts, right? So when you separate the normal courts from the online dispute resolution, especially for the arbitration purposes, it will certainly reduce burden on the courts, and it will save time, because you no need to travel long distances to attend the court proceedings. You save time and you also save costs, and it will provide effective resolution of disputes, taking into consideration the concerns of the all the stakeholders. This is the first advantage. And the second advantage is online dispute resolution involves more than just audio video conferencing. It is not just an audio video conferencing, rather, it encompasses the integration of several tools. The tools include multi channel communication, case management systems, automated case flows, digital signature, and stamping. So it involves integration of wide variety of tools, and it also involves application of advanced and emerging technologies like blockchain technology, natural language processing, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So therefore, it will also facilitate the growth of emerging technologies, right? When the court proceedings, the online dispute resolution mechanism and arbitration system are more tech savvy, and when they are more adopted to the technology, then India could become a front runner without a doubt, or a global arbitration hub, digital hub, arbitration hub. However, private platforms in India have already resolving lakhs of disputes. There are several private platforms, and those private platforms within India, they have already resolving lakhs of disputes through online dispute resolution, a dispute between two or more companies. So arbitration is generally amicably settling the issues between two businesses. So therefore, several private platforms in India already resolving lakhs of disputes through online dispute resolution. And in fact, many corporates have already migrated to the online dispute resolution to resolve, say, their small value disputes. They already. However, it is interesting to note the comments made by Niti Aayog on online dispute resolution. So Niti Aayog says that India is uniquely positioned to emerge as an epicenter of developments of online dispute resolution. So due to the need for an efficient dispute resolution system and advancements in technology, so India is uniquely positioned to emerge as an epicenter of online dispute resolution system. So this is what Niti Aayog's opinion on the online dispute resolution system and arbitration in India. However, to facilitate the growth of the development of online dispute resolution and settling the disputes through arbitration among the businesses, there needs to be a, a legislature, executive, judiciary. They must work together. They should not work in silos. Rather, they must work together with the common aspiration and the common spirit. In fact, several organizations like Reserve Bank of India, National Payments Corporation of India, and Open Network of Digital Commerce. So the Open Network of Digital Commerce is launched, or India is planning to launch this Open Network of Digital Commerce in order to democratize the e-commerce space. So these institutions have led a way by incorporating the online dispute resolution mechanisms into several of their initiatives. So they have come up with the several initiatives, and they have online dispute resolution mechanisms in their initiatives. So they have incorporated and mandated online dispute resolution. So the need now is to disseminate these at a mass scale, right? So we have discussed a few organizations, few institutions, how they have incorporated ODR mechanisms into several of their initiatives. In the same way, there is a need to disseminate these online dispute resolution at a mass scale. There are few steps which needs to be considered. The steps include: we should incentivize the use of online dispute resolution, right? Bring a comprehensive legislation and incentivize the use of online dispute resolution, right? In fact, the online dispute resolution as a default resolution tool. So online dispute resolution is a default resolution tool, and also announce uh, the incentives through a legislation. So it is a default resolution tool for online transactions, fast tracking enforcements, and online dispute resolution outcomes. And also consider the measures of reducing stamp duty and port fees. So these measures will further help, uh, you know, improve the online dispute resolution mechanism in India. These are some steps which needs to be considered for India to have a robust online dispute resolution mechanism. However, there are several infrastructure challenges for that also: technological challenges, manpower challenges, physical infrastructure challenges. So therefore, to solve infrastructure challenges and also curb the digital divide is access to digital technologies. For example, there has been a difference in access in digital technologies in rural areas, urban areas, and also within men and women. So therefore, there should be measures to curb the digital divide and also need to solve the existing infrastructure problems and to catalyze. So it will help catalyzing the online dispute resolution growth, right? However, there's a concept of Aadhaar Kendras. There are several Aadhaar Kendras. These Kendras will do registration and any changes in Aadhaar details. So these Aadhaar Kendras can also function as the dispute resolution, online dispute resolution kiosks. We have discussed there is a problem of digital divide. So in order to overcome the problem of the digital divide, see, the existing Aadhaar Kendras in rural areas can be used as a online dispute resolution kiosks. And even court have a separate online dispute resolution cell, right? So the court itself can have an online dispute resolution cell along with the supplemental technical and administrative support staff. So Aadhaar Kendras is one measure. So as part of e-courts project, Finance Minister announced 7,000 crore in the third phase, right, in the Union Budget 2023. So this 7,000 crore aimed at digitizing the justice system. And also in the same way, how the government has been planning to digitize this justice system, a dedicated fund must be set up for the online dispute resolution also. So these are some steps that government need to consider to make India an online dispute resolution hub, an online arbitration hub. However, the government departments should also explore the ODR, grievance redressal mechanisms, right? The government departments should increasingly go for grievance redressal mechanisms through ODR, right? So this will help in proactive use of online dispute resolution by government entities, and it will also increase trust in the process, but also ensure that citizens have access to convenient and cost-effective means of resolving disputes with the government, right? So the disputes citizens have could be resolved in a more convenient and cost-effective means, right, with the government. And at the same time, there has been a huge pendency in our courts, right? Um, Within the justice delivery system, there has been a huge pendency of cases, right, from the Supreme Court up to the district courts. So therefore, the online dispute resolution has the potential to ensure justice for all, because it deals with the issues like affordability, accessibility, and it will also reduces the cost and will save time. So therefore, it provides justice for all the stakeholders, even the bottom sections of the society. So therefore, India may have missed the opportunity to become a global arbitration hub, but India should catch up and overtake them through online. So India have the potential to become a global arbitration. Earlier have the potential, but India missed the opportunity. But in the online space, India still have the opportunity. So therefore, India should focus on catching up the opportunity. So this is what this article says. So let's discuss the next news article. So the next news article is regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So this is about the COVID-19 pandemic. So we all know that in recent times, there has been increase in the number of COVID-19 cases, right? So as per the data released by the government on April 12, a total of 7,830 new cases were reported in just 24 hours. So there has been a huge increase in the number of cases in India, and this is the data published by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, right? So this is almost increase in over 200 years, the number of cases. And in India, there are over 40,000 active cases. So therefore, it is important for India to have enough healthcare preparedness to deal with any emergency medical situation. So this article has been emphasizing on the better part of management is for anything is preparedness. India should focus on better preparedness. And the rising number of COVID-19 cases in the country indicate the need to gear up the existing preparedness, right? Whatever preparedness we have, so that preparedness we need to further gear up and further improve, right? So in fact, the reason for increase in cases is XBB.1.16, the virus named. This is a lineage of earlier existing Omicron virus, right? So the virus name is XBB.1.16. So it is behind the current rapid proliferation of cases in the country. And also, there has been an increase in the rate of fatalities as well. So therefore, it has been suggesting that, and it is also reassuring that initial studies of the behavior of XBB.1.16 suggest that it is just a milder infection. So not to worry about this, it is just a milder infection and it does not require hospitalization. So there are serious variants also within Omicron. So those variants require immediate hospitalization and the fatality rate is also high. However, the advantage with XBB.1.16 is that it is just a milder infection and does not require any hospitalization, right? So this indicate that it is not a very virulent strain. So not very serious and not very virulent strain. However, the health system can scarcely afford to be underprepared. Even though it is less virulent, the healthcare systems in India should not or cannot afford to be underprepared. So, preparedness is the key to come out of or to effectively come out of the pandemic. So, therefore, and also considering the recent traumatic experience of pandemic taking a huge toll. India experienced a serious pandemic 1 year before, so where there has been a huge toll. So therefore, considering those experiences, India should not take anything lightly. We have to be more prepared to deal with this infection. However, the rising number of COVID cases in India is that a call to rouse the healthcare systems across the country. So uh, we should increase the robustness of our healthcare systems, our healthcare professionals, and states' readiness to meet any challenge. States should be ready, and healthcare systems should be adequately equipped and adequately prepared, right? However, the difference between March 2023 and March 2020 is that world is no longer COVID-19. So COVID-19 pandemic is not known to world. I mean, it is not new to world in March 2023. So we have had enough experiences of COVID-19 pandemic. So therefore, there's nothing to worry about it, but we should focus on preparedness. We should have adequately prepared, and the state and central government should be ready to meet any challenge which will be posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, the World Health Organization is also considering or suggesting measures similar to like a seasonal influenza. So this seems that there has been a little flexibility while dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic because we have had enough experiences of COVID-19 pandemic since past 3 years. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, uh, a COVID task force meeting was conducted 2 years ago. So in this meeting, he advised the states to improve the readiness, and the preparedness should also be taken care of. And while dealing with COVID-19 pandemic, the policy should be test, track, and treat vaccine, right? So test, track, triple treat, 3T, right? Test, track, treat, and then vaccinate. 3T plus V. And also adhere to the COVID appropriate behavior. COVID appropriate behavior is wearing masks, washing hands regularly, washing hands, and also maintaining the social distancing. So they are COVID appropriate behaviors. And also enhancing the lab surveillance and testing all severe acute respiratory illness cases. So there are acute respiratory illness cases also. If government or the healthcare system neglects the acute respiratory illness, uh, it may be due to COVID-19 pandemic. So neglecting the respiratory illness may lead to the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. So therefore, they should be enhancing a lab surveillance, testing all severe acute respiratory illness cases, and it should be mock drills should be conducted regularly in all the hospitals, right? So when mock drills are conducted, we understand the preparedness. We also understand the shortcomings within the healthcare dispensary, so that adequate measures could be taken. And these mock drills should be conducted nationwide. And also, several states come up with the provisions that uh, masks are compulsory at different levels, right? And so, therefore, in this context, the prior experience that a lot depends on compliance at the personal level. So, no doubt, the government has also been taking measures to curb the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. But along with the government, it is also important to complying with these norms, the COVID appropriate behaviors, and uh, also the individuals following the norms prescribed by the government. Compliance of these norms is very important. So, what an individual can do: washing hygiene, the wash initiative, that is washing hands, sanitation should be adequately focused on, and masking, and reaching hospital early, particularly in the case of senior citizens or personnel with comorbidities. If a person already have any diseases, a person who are senior citizens, they should reach the hospitals early, so that the fatality rate or the mortality rate due to the pandemic could be minimized. So these are some compliances at the individual level. Oh, as governments prepare themselves, strengthening healthcare systems, individuals should also be prudent to take adequate precautions. So they should be measures on the part of the government, and individuals should also be prudent to take any precautionary measures, and he should comply with all the norms prescribed, all the COVID appropriate behavior. And this is what this article says. So, in this context, let's try and understand COVID-19 virus. See, this is a virus. COVID-19 is a virus, and that associated with the outbreak originating in Wuhan. So, this is also known as Wuhan virus. Wuhan is in China, and it has been designated as severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. So this is SARS-CoV-2. This is also known as SARS-CoV-2. And the disease caused by that virus is officially called as COVID-19. The disease caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus is officially known as COVID-19 virus. You can see spikes in the COVID-19 virus. So they are protein spikes in the COVID-19 virus. So different parts have been clearly demarcated on the COVID-19 virus. So it is not very important. Just understand the COVID-19 pandemic and what causes the virus, what causes the disease, right? The next news article is regarding the role of parliamentary committees. See, the role of parliamentary committees is for UPSC mains is very important, because parliamentary committees scrutinizes every bill. So almost most of the bills, they scrutinize bills, they suggest amendments, and they also keep in mind the larger public interest. If a bill is arbitrary, the provisions of the bill violates the provisions of the constitution, or they are inconsistent with the existing fundamental rights, or they are discriminating against any section of this in the society. So these bills suggest these committees suggest amendments to the bills. So therefore, the Parliament could widely discuss on those suggested amendments. So scrutinizing bills by the parliamentary committees enhances their effectiveness and efficiency as well. So in this context, let's understand why this is in news. It is in news because there has been a declining trend of national legislation being subject to scrutiny. So, not many bills are scrutinized by the parliamentary committees. So, the data shows that the 17th Lok Sabha, in the 17th Lok Sabha, only 14 bills have been referred for the further examination, right? So, this is in contrary to 25% of the total bills were referred in the 16th Lok Sabha, and 71 percentage of total bills in the 15th Lok Sabha, and 60% of the total bills in 14th Lok Sabha. So just referring 14 bills to parliamentary committees shows that not many bills are scrutinized by the parliamentary committees. Parliamentary committees, if scrutinizes bills, they make the bills or the legislations more democratic and also more effective. So they remove the arbitrary provisions, and they also suggest amendments to the existing bills, right? So therefore, it is certainly a concern. Committees can go into the details of specific piece of legislation. The committees can go into the details of this specific piece of legislation, and they also analyze the impact it may have on the governance indicators. So if it becomes a legislature, if it becomes a proper legislature, and what will be its impact on the governance indicators will also be analyzed by the parliamentary committees. And parliamentary committees, after analyzing and scrutinizing, they suggest recommendations to the existing bills. However, one thing we should note is that the recommendations suggested by the parliamentary committees are not binding on the government. However, these recommendations help legislature to ensure an oversight over the executive. Because once a bill proposed by the executive sent to the introduced in the legislature, and the bill then referred to the parliamentary committees will carefully observe and analyze those bills. So therefore, the legislature will know about the true intentions of the bill. So therefore, it will be an oversight of the legislature over the executive. However, there has been a declining trend, national legislation being subjected to expert group scrutiny. So we have discussed the stats regarding the declining trend of bills being sent to the scrutiny of the parliamentary committees. However, the parliament could consider a compulsory referral. The parliament can compulsorily, a few bills, parliament can compulsorily refer those bills, and that are tabled on the floor for the appropriate committees. So there are different number of committees. There are parliamentary standing committees and ad hoc committees also. Ad hoc committees are temporary committees. Parliamentary standing committees are permanent committees. So they are constituted every year. However, ad hoc committees are constituted only for a specific purpose. If the purpose of the committee is done, so they are dissolved, right? So with more powers will help them ensure accountability of the executive. It suggests that the parliamentary committees should have more powers. So that ensures the accountability of the executive to the legislature. However, we need to understand there has been a sheer volume or the increasing volume of information and scale of operations that Indian Parliament is required to undertake, because India is such a diverse country, and geographically also it is a huge country in terms of geographical uh, expansion. So therefore, there has been a sheer volume of information and scale of operations that Indian Parliament regularly undertake. So therefore, the feasibility of all issues on the floor of the House. So it is not feasible to consider all the issues on the floor of the House. So that's where the parliamentary committees will come into picture, and they can scrutinize various bills, and they can look into the specific provisions of various bills, and they can also suggest amendments to the existing bills or the referred bills. So therefore, there is a popular perception. There's a popular perception that the looking into the bills is the only purpose of these committees. Bills are introduced in the House, and then the bills will be referred to the parliamentary committees. So the perception is that looking into the bills is only responsibility or the role of the parliamentary committees. However, this is not completely true, because uh, we tend to underestimate their relevance, the relevance of the parliamentary committees, because not realizing the magnitude of efforts they put into to make parliament more dynamic and a functional space where members converge every few months and the debate matters. So this is not true that if we consider parliament, the parliamentary committees just look into the bills. However, they try and make parliament a more dynamic and a functional space. However, behind every speech and every comment, every bill introduced or taken up for discussion in the House lies the ceaseless and enormous work of various committees. In the Parliament, if some comments were made, some bills were introduced, there has been a ceaseless and a lot of effort of these committees is involved. So therefore, there has been a lot of relevance in the parliamentary democracy, uh, and especially the parliamentary committees have. So let's look into the evolution of these committees, right? So they are a structured committee system. They were established in 1993. The structured committee system in India established in the year 1993. However, individual committees were also being formed for various reasons. Even not achieved independence at that time, also there were individual parliamentary committees. For instance, um, during the constituent assembly times also, five crucial committees were constituted. One such committee was ad hoc committee on citizenship clause, and this deals with the nature and the scope of Indian citizenship. So this was one such committee, individual committee of the Constituent Assembly, set up way before India achieved independence. However, the structural committee system uh, established in the year 1993. Understand today Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have their own standing permanent committees and ad hoc committees. We have discussed what is a standing committee and what is an ad hoc committee. However, there are also joint committees. Joint committees consist of members of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So it has a representation from both houses. So what is the role of these committees? We already discussed that committees go into the specific details and specific provisions of various bills. So it goes into the details of a specific piece of legislation, and it analyzes the impact it may have on the governance indicators. In fact, the government should also table a report, an action taken report on the recommendations given by the parliamentary committees before the parliament. So therefore, we already discussed that these recommendations are not binding on the government, but these recommendations will help legislature to ensure the oversight over the executive, the legislative oversight over the executive. So there are business advisory groups also, business advisory committee in the parliament also. The business advisory committee role is a preparation of entire schedule of both houses when parliament is in session. So business advisory groups roles and responsibilities are they prepare entire schedule for both houses when parliament is not in session. However, if we look at the current progress of the parliamentary standing committees, we already discussed that there has been a trend in which not many bills are referred to the parliamentary standing committees or the parliamentary committees. However, the salient work done by the committees in a recent past is digital data protection bill. So where the parliamentary committee have done a salient work, because in 2017, a Puttaswamy judgment, Supreme Court announced right to privacy as a fundamental rights. So in the backdrop, Justice Sri Krishna Committee was formed, and the committee was tasked with the preparation of data protection framework in India. So India should have a comprehensive legal data protection framework so that individual rights of privacy can be balanced with the state's requirement of any necessary information for law enforcement. So that the committee, the parliamentary committee, looked into the digital data protection bill, which was introduced in the year 2019, Personal Data Protection Bill. So this bill was tabled in Lok Sabha in the year 2019 and also referred to the committees, the joint parliamentary committees. So that joint parliamentary committee is led by PP Chowdhury. Okay. However, the bill was withdrawn, and followed by this withdrawal, a new draft data protection bill is introduced in the introduced for public consultation. So once the bill is referred to the parliamentary standing committee, the parliamentary standing committee have cited, flagged several issues which are in violation of individual privacy. So therefore, the bill was withdrawn by the government and a new bill has been introduced, and the bill is put in for public consultation, right? Not yet referred the bill for the parliamentary committees. So this is one such important work which has done by the parliamentary committees. However, the parliamentary insights have not only been invaluable, the parliamentary standing committees insights not only been invaluable, but also formed the very basis of what possibly the single most crucial legislation, the Personal Data Protection Bill, the parliamentary committees insights over the bill, and also the the very basis of what possibly the single most crucial legislation of digital in the digital age growing economy. So therefore, in fact, the parliamentary committees have carefully analyzed different bills. The bills include Prohibition of Child Marriages Amendment Bill that seeks to raise the legal age for women to 21 years, and Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill. So that brings into enactment the UN Convention on Law of Sea for combating piracy on high seas, and also the Jan Vishwas Bill that aims to amend 42 laws across sectors like agriculture sector and media. The Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill that extend the scope of protected species, and also the Competition Amendment Bill, Electricity Amendment Bill, Criminal Procedure Identification Bill, and Multi-State Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill. Please remember all these bills. So these bills are very crucial and very important, right? Especially the Prohibition of Child Marriages Amendment Bill and Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill, the Jan Vishwas Bill. Okay. However, the another important mandate of the committee is to go into the issues that are crucial for nation building, not just for the political consideration, but the committees should consider the issues which concern the national interest, and that they are also crucial for nation building. So one such example is the defense shipyards. So defense shipyard is nothing to do with any political aspirations or political consideration. It is simply keeping in mind the national security as a forefront. the securities in order to, this is to safeguard the security of the nation. So this is one such role of the parliamentary committees. So what will be the way forward? What will be the road ahead? The road ahead will be Parliament would consider compulsory referral of all the bills. So compulsorily referral of all the bills that tabled on the floor, so that they increase the efficiency and effectiveness of those bills, and they make those bills more democratic, and also arming them with more powers, because they should not be toothless tigers. They should be armed with more powers. So that will help ensure the accountability of the executive to the legislature. Yeah, and it should not be a toothless tiger. However, in a parliamentary ecosystem in India, it is important to institutionalize such procedures like referring bills to the parliamentary committees, and it should not, the political considerations should not be allowed to hasten lawmaking. However, the governments may, with the political considerations, not to refer bills for the parliamentary committees. So therefore, we should institutionalize these procedures, and political considerations should not hasten the lawmaking process. That is the crux of the parliamentary democracy and the parliamentary form of government. So this is all about the parliamentary committees and referral of bills and their work, their role. Okay, the next news article. See, this news article is very important for prelims. So this is about the Large Hadron Collider. So the Large Hadron Collider is also known for founding the God particle, right? The Higgs boson particle. So the Large Hadron Collider conduct experiments with highly energized subatomic particles. There are few particles which are at the subatomic sizes. So it conduct experiments with subatomic particles, and it is built by the European Organization for Nuclear Research, CERN. It is also known as CERN. The European Organization for Nuclear Research built this Large Hadron Collider, and it experiments with highly energized subatomic particles. So the Large Hadron Collider, true to its name, have three things. One is it is very large. First is it is very large. It is so large that world's largest science experiment. It is also known as world's largest science experiment. And secondly, it has a collider. It has a collider. The collider accelerates two beams of particles. So different beams of particles, and the collider accelerates two beams of particles in the opposite direction, and then the beams of particles will collide and smashes with each other. And the third, it has hadrons. Hadrons are subatomic particles, right? So it will have, it is large, it has a collider, and it is also has hadrons. So therefore, that name Large Hadron Collider. So the functioning of Large Hadron Collider. So hadron is a subatomic particle. We have discussed what is hadron. Hadron is a subatomic particle, and it is made up of smaller particles. Subatomic particles are very small in size. So this Large Hadron Collider typically uses protons. In its experiment, it typically uses protons, right? And these protons, which are made up of quarks and gluons. This experiment uses protons, and the protons are made up of quarks and gluons. Now it energizes the Large Hadron Collider, energizes the protons by accelerating through a narrow circular pipe that is 27 kilometer long, right? So once they are accelerated, then the two beams of particles will collide with each other. What are the findings of Large Hadron Collider? So Large Hadron Collider consists of 9 detectors located over a points of on the pipe. So it consists of 9 different detectors. They are located in the beam pipe, and they also study particle interactions in a different ways. They also study the particle interactions within the Large Hadron Collider in different ways. So every year, the detectors generate a data of 30,000 TB data, and this data and a word storing, and this data will later analyzed by the scientists to find out the information about these particles. And in the same way, in 2012, the Higgs boson particle, the God particle, was also identified with the same analysis of the generated data. What are the achievements of a Large Hadron Collider? God particle discovery is one achievement of this Large Hadron Collider, and it is also known as Higgs boson or God particle during the LHC's first run, right? The Higgs boson is the fundamental building block. So it is generally the fundamental building block of the universe. It is a fundamental particle associated with Higgs field. What is Higgs field? The field that gives mass to other fundamental particles such as electrons and quarks. Okay, so this is all about the Large Hadron Collider and its achievements, and how Large Hadron Collider actually work, and how scientists found out the God's particle. Okay, so the next news article is a COPE India exercise between India and USA Air Force is taking place in India. So this exercise is very important for interoperability of the two forces and increasing the trust and confidence of these two forces, and especially in the context of Chinese assertiveness at India's borders and in the Indian Ocean region, and USA's increasing importance for the Indo-Pacific. The COPE India assumed significance. So India's light combat aircraft Tejas, Rafale, and Sukhoi 30 MKI and Jaguars. All these are Indian aircrafts, Indian Air Force aircrafts. They all set to undertake maneuvers with F-15 fighter jets and B-1B long-range bombers. These are USA aircrafts. Okay, so they used to undertake maneuvers with these two aircrafts. So this is the second phase of bilateral exercise, part of COPE India. Just remember COPE India 23. Now Japan is also taking part in this exercise as an observer, and this exercise will be supported by aerial refuelers, airborne warning control systems, airborne early warning and control aircraft of the Indian Air Force. Okay, so in this backdrop, let's look into some of the exercises India conduct with other countries. So these are all the exercises India conducts with other countries, right from the Mitra Shakti with India, Sri Lanka, Slynex, Surya Kiran, India, Nepal, hand in hand, India, China, Jair Albar, India, Qatar. So please go through all these exercises. These exercises frequently asked in other competitive examinations, not especially in the UPSC examination. So therefore, please go through all these exercises. Okay, so the next news article for the discussion is, it is about inflation. Recently, the inflation data, the consumer inflation has been published by National Statistical Office. So it says that the consumer inflation slides below 6% mark for the first time this year. We all know that the inflation target of set by the government to RBI is 4%, and with the upper tolerance level of 2% and the lower tolerance level of +2 and -2, upper tolerance and lower tolerance level. However, the recent data says that the retail inflation slides below 6% mark for the first time in 2020. So this means that the retail inflation is lower because the drop was aided by the base effect. So what is base effect? Base effect is the impact of the previous year inflation on the current year inflation. So this is the base. Due to the base effect, there has been a slide in inflation for the first time in the year 2013. because last month it had recorded a 7% price rise in last year, right? So despite moderation, the last month fiscal year, Indian consumer faced an inflation of 6.6%, 66%. So the inflation data is released every month. So last month, the inflation was 6.66 percentage. However, recently RBI paused the interest rate hikes. In case if inflation has been increasing in the economy, that means more currency in circulation in the economy. So that increases inflation. So if inflation is higher, RBI would go for rate hike, right? So RBI would go for rate hike, and it squeezes the currency in the economy. However, the RBI pauses the interest rate hikes to check inflation in its monetary policy review. However, the retail for consumers in rural areas. So this is a relief for consumers in rural areas because they have seen a sharper dip in inflation. So that is eased from 6.72 percentage to just 5.51 percentage. So it is different for urban consumers. It is up for urban consumers. It is around 5.59%. So in this context, let's look into, let's discuss what is inflation and what is consumer price inflation specifically. Okay, so the inflation refers to the rise in prices of most goods and services also. So they are for daily common use. They include articles like food, clothing, housing, recreation, and transportation, etc. So general rise in prices. Okay, so inflation measures the average price change in a basket of commodities. So in a basket of commodities, the average price increase will be considered by the inflation. So inflation is an indicator of the decrease in the purchasing power of a unit of currency, right? So inflation means reducing the value of Indian currency. So therefore, the a decrease in the purchasing power of one unit of country's currency, and this could ultimately lead to deceleration in the economic growth because it reduces the purchasing power of the rupee, and therefore it leads to the deceleration of the economic growth. However, moderate levels of inflation creates enough demand in the economy, and in the short term it would be good, the moderate levels of inflation. So in India, inflation is primarily measured through wholesale price index and consumer price index, so which measure wholesale level and retail level price changes respectively. Now we try and understand what is consumer price index. Okay, so the consumer price index measures the price changes from the perspective of retail buyers, not at the wholesale level, but at the retail level. So it is released by National Statistical Office, and consumer price index released every month. The CPI calculates difference of in the price of commodities and services such as food, medical, care, education, electronics, and with which Indian consumers buy for use. The CPI calculates these goods and services. So CPI also has several subgroups, including food, beverages, fuel, light, housing, etc. However, there are four types of consumer price index. One is consumer price index for industrial workers, consumer price index for agricultural laborers, and consumer price index for rural laborers, and CPI, rural urban combined. So the first three are released and compiled by the Ministry, Labor Bureau of the Ministry of Labor. All this is related to the labor and workers. And the last one, Consumer Price Index Rural and Urban Combined, is released by NSO, compiled and released by NSO of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So this is all about the consumer price index and slide in inflation. So this is all for today, and thank you.